All right. Hi, everybody. Welcome to OK Zoomer, Zoom interviews with creative engineers and more. I'm Aaron Lichtig, Xometry guy, former Jeopardy champion, and as always, I'll be your host today. Today, I am psyched to be joined by Joel Telling. The 3D printing nerd is here on OK Zoomer today. 3D Printing Nerd is a YouTube channel devoted to the very wonderful world of 3D printing. They cover everything from hobby to the consumer level, all the way up to kind of big production level, industrial additive manufacturing. He talks to a lot of people there, and through those conversations, he lets those people tell their story. So, Joel, 3D Printing Nerd, welcome.
Good morning.
Thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me.
Live with us from Seattle, Washington. So,
that's right.
How did you become the 3D printing nerd?
It's a fun story. I'm a giant nerd anyway. Just I love nerdy things. I built things out of duct tape and cardboard as a kid, and I like to take apart things. And I remember in high school I made my own little wired walkie-talkie system to talk back and forth with someone in my garage. Just general nerditry, right? So 3D printing itself, it's always quite a nerdy thing. I thought this could be fun. And so I paid attention to channels like Barnacules Nerdgasm and Tom Sandlatterer. We're talking back in 2013, 2014. And then Christmas of 2014, my wife and kids got for me my very first 3D printer. And I opened it up, and it was a joyous occasion. And that's where it all started. I got it. I learned a lot. And I thought, wow, I like learning about this stuff. This is exciting. I bet others would like to learn about it as well. And being a giant nerd, I had video and audio equipment and lights and stuff. And so I just went for it. And that's it.
Cool. Now, what are some of the coolest, baddest 3D printing projects you've seen recently?
Just in general?
In general, yeah. It could be ones you're working on, ones other people are working on.
Boy, let's see. One of the cool things that I recently found out about and learned a little bit more about is this company called Maple Glass. They're 3D printing with glass. They're actually achieving the temperatures needed to melt glass and then extrude it over time into a recognizable shape, which just blows my mind. Some of the stuff that I've done though, I built a really big RC car. There's a model within the 3D printing community called the OpenRC F1. A guy by the name of Daniel over in Sweden designed it. And the thinking was, as long as you have access to motors and some electronics, you could print the rest of the parts of an RC car and go have a bunch of fun. So I said, that's a great idea. Let's scale it up 4 times original size. And so it was a struggle to get going, but eventually we made it happen. And that's probably one of my crowning achievements as far as 3D printing goes. It's just unfortunate because right now it's in my garage a little bit broken. During the final test drive, we were going down a hill. I didn't have the brakes configured right, and we crashed into a Tesla.
Oh no, into a Tesla, no less.
Well, into the tire of a Tesla. And so my friend was like, wow, that's EV on EV violence.
So how did you actually 3D print one of these things?
Well, the idea is, for that size and scale, what I had to do is take the models that were available and slice them into chunks that would fit onto the build plate of my various 3D printers. And so I kind of digitally slice it up. It's almost like cutting a cake digitally. And then I took those pieces and I would print them out individually. And then when they were all printed out, I assembled them. So glued them, adhered them, taped them, whatever, got them to hold together into the now combined larger shape.
Okay, cool. Now, one question I had to ask, does my hamster care about 3D printing?
Boy, no. Not at all. That was a lot of fun. So you're referencing the video, obviously, on the channel where I used a model from Clock Spring 3D to print a new hamster food container for my daughter's hamster. And hamster, I mean, it's a chill hamster. Her name is Bart, and Bart doesn't really care about anything. So my daughter will hold Bart, and Bart will just be on her back, kind of looking around like, what, So And not only does that hamster not care about 3D printing, it doesn't care about much of anything else. But we got a lot of really great content out of it. It was really fun to show a somewhat practical side of 3D printing, right? I mean, I could go to the Tupperware store and buy a container for hamster food, but the model is neat and it's 3D printable, and why not have a little fun?
Awesome. Now, you've been in the 3D printing industry for a while. What are some of the trends you see as we look out 3 years or 5 years? Where do you think this thing is heading?
I think on the consumer side, I think what we're going to see is more machines that people will have in their garage or maker space or office or whatever. More machines that are less expensive, built incredibly well, and can print more materials. I think we're going to see the consumer level machine become easier and easier to use for those who've never used 3D printing before. I think the future really finds itself in giving us interesting materials. So we talked about maple glass just a moment ago and being able to 3D print glass. That's not really, that you're not really going to be doing that in your garage anytime soon, I promise. But the idea that you can use 3D printing to print materials that you may not have been able to build with before. As an example, 3M is working on 3D printable Teflon, which is just crazy. And imagine taking metals and putting them within a polymer kind of casing as a filament. So you get a strand of it. You can send it through a nozzle to melt it into a shape, and then you can anneal it to bake off any of those binding elements, and then you're left with a metal shape. And that metal shape can be produced via a machine that costs $100 to $200 that you keep in your garage. And so I think we've got cheaper machines. I think we are less expensive machines. I hate saying cheap. Less expensive machines of better build quality and more choice of materials. And then the future, I think all of this is going to be possible because the future is going to have more kids who grew up in this. As an example, if you hand a child an iPhone, they know how to use it. It's almost instinctively. They just know that they can touch a screen and swipe it. And it's part of the reason is because kids themselves are curious and they can process things a little bit different than you and I. But the other reason is because it's incredibly intuitive to use. And so if we have these machines that are beginning to be more intuitive to use, and we have these young people who have grown up with them now entering a very hungry job market, then we're going to get a lot of extremely qualified individuals to work in this additive manufacturing industry. And that's when we see the hockey stick of what can happen, right? We get to see more cool things made with 3D printing. We get to see the availability of cool things made with 3D printing increase, and we get to, it just feels more bright. The future feels better.
It does. Now, what advice would you have for someone who wants to take advantage of some of these opportunities in the future and be an aspiring 3D printing nerd just like you?
That's a really interesting question because there's so much available out there for free. I mean, obviously my content on YouTube is free, and so is a whole bunch of other people. And there's a lot of it that is very information dense and you can learn from it. There's also blogs and news articles and people covering the industry. And if you do bite the bullet and you get yourself your first machine, I think one of the things that everybody needs to remember is that it's a tool, and you shouldn't be afraid to try it or use it. I mean, you should read the directions and you should use it as you're supposed to, but don't be afraid to experiment. These things as tools, these things can break, but as tools, it means these things can be repaired to keep working. So like find where inspiration strikes you and just use it. And don't be afraid, because you can always fix it if it breaks.
You can always 3D print something else.
Absolutely.
Well, Joel, thank you so much for joining us today. It's been a pleasure to have you on the show. This is Joel Telling, the 3D Printing Nerd. Please check out his website, the3dprintingnerd.com, as well as his YouTube channel. It's a wonderful channel, tons of great videos that will teach you everything you need to know about 3D printing and entertain you at the same time.
Thanks for that.
We will be back again soon with another episode of OK Zoomer. Thank you for watching.